on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
You should just make sure that any office that you're working in has some type of system in place for an end of day lockout or some way of making sure that what you have said is accurate.
What I'm talking about with protecting your license is if you're in a situation like this, how hard is it for you to leave a situation because you know that there's going to be some issues? And then what is your responsibility? Do you need to turn it in or do you not? So wanted to make your listeners just aware that if they notice this in their office, whether it's upcharging, whether it's changing the clinical notes, you can't just sit there and go, well, it's not me. They're not going to come after me. We have a duty, right? There is going to come up conversation of, oh yeah, the assistant, we can never fire the assistant. I think they're sleeping together, or they're never going to fire the hygienist because they're sleeping together. And that just is a terrible position to put the office in. So I think my message is, if you're married or if somebody else is married, just don't do it, buddy.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 427. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for joining us today. For the episode today, we go into some maybe, they're not, I guess, gray areas for topics, probably ones that we wouldn't normally discuss, but one, Teresa Duncan, man, she likes to rock the boat. Every time she's on, I feel like we have some topics that are a little bit kind of in this gray area. And two, the thing about these topics that in this day and age, we are seeing some of these things happen probably more than we ever have. I feel like most of us have, and part of it, we'll get into this like in another episode, but we jump offices so often now. It's very rare to see a hygienist stay in an office for their full career or even only have two offices. And so because of that, we're exposed to so many more things that we just need to address them. We just need to talk about them. Today, we're going to be talking about lawsuits, who's complicit, who's at fault, maybe even in the underdiagnosing of diseases. I think that we talk a lot about inter-office relationships, but honestly, I'm not really sure if that one made it past the edits. And also we had a little malfunction with our recording equipment getting unplugged as we were recording. So that maybe didn't make it to the show, and I can't remember if it did or not. And then we finish up with talking about offices where the spouse of the doctor is the office manager. And what does that mean? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? Is it awesome? Is it whatever? Special thanks to Beverly Wilburn for joining us on this one and lending her expert opinion. You will definitely be hearing more from her again in future episodes because it was awesome and she's amazing. Next week, we go into our relatively short series, maybe 2, maybe 3 episodes of working abroad. And we start by featuring Lacey Walker, who's been on the show before. And she talks about a kind of a recent event where she is now working on a base in Germany as a dental hygienist. And so we talk about what that's like, what the transition has been for, for her moving over there and all of that. So be sure to join us for that one. And then we have another one and then maybe a third one. And the third one's going to only happen if I get my act together. But I would love to do an episode about planning this international dental mission trip and some of the things that we've been running into that are really good, some of the things that are, maybe not so good. And, the good, the bad, the ugly, I guess, of that one as we plan for our trip for next month. So if I can get that together, I'll be happy to put it out here in probably about 3 or 4 weeks' time. But that is it. That's it for the intro for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. And here's the episode with Teresa and Beverly.
A tale of two hygienists.
Well, listeners, welcome into this episode.
Are you starting? You're not starting. Are we recording?
Yeah, we already did. Look, this
You're
might
like
be
the
an
sexiest
episode
podcast
that
host ever.
You're the sexiest podcast.
No, you are. I was giving you a compliment.
I thought she said her, but I think
No,
I thought she said her, right? She's like,
are.
I am like,
What?
Oh.
I would never never say that.
I would say it about myself. So
That's
about confidence, right? It's
Right.
about this episode's going to the garbage. Just so you know, we are not airing this thing. There's not going to be a way. But listeners, look, we've already started. You're just going to jump into this conversation. Just deal with it. Okay. That's the attitude I have today. We're going to talk about, you got some hot, juicy gossip?
Well, I wanted to talk about what you see. If you see something in an office, you have to say something. And
Put that in your face.
that's you.
Thank you.
That's you fixing my mic. Okay, thank you.
For the listeners, I can't see what's happening. Actually,
Just wanna
eats
make
cotton
sure.
candy, by the way.
Oh, God. Cotton candy is it's pina colada cotton candy.
Gross.
Okay, now I have to have a bite.
See?
Okay, now I will.
All right, so I
Only 'cause
wanted
it's
to
pina
talk
colada.
about what happens when you're in an office and you see some funky stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I was wanting to specifically to talk about stealing.
Okay.
I also wanted to talk about, but I don't know if you really want to go into it, why do dentists sleep with their employees?
I do want to talk about all of those things.
Okay, all right, so we'll do that.
Where-
I mean, I
where do we
don't
start?
really, I can't really answer the question about the second one, but I want to talk about the reasons. So,
Where's a dentist? Let's find those docs.
all right,
Just
so
don't grab
Those
the one that
dirty
just
docs
left.
I was
Don't
just
grab
Yeah.
the one that just left.
over here kissing people over here left and right.
So there's been a lot of talk in a lot of the managers groups and all that. They are seeing incidences of fraud that the doctors are actually asking them to commit, and I think it's a problem out there because we want to keep our jobs,
Yeah.
but we also don't want to be liable. And I think a lot of managers are waking up to the fact that if they commit fraud, they're the ones who are pushing it through and they actually are liable. But I do think that the clinical team needs to understand that when they go in and assess a fine, they look at everybody. And if it's bad enough, negligently, they will come after. And hygienists have a license to protect, right? And some DAs. So I think why I wanted to bring this up is because I've gotten in the last 2 weeks 2 emails from people who are seeing this in their office and they don't know who to report it to. They don't know what to do, and they're terrified that they're going to be held liable. So have you seen anything like that?
Well, let's kind of define, I guess, what the fraud accusations are, because I feel like from a clinical standpoint, like, we're in the back, we put our codes in, and then we walk away and we're done. And we kind of wash our hands of a lot of like the aftermath and if codes are getting changed, or if doctors asking certain codes to be changed, or certain narratives that we have to put into our notes. Like, they don't really ask us to change them; they just change them themselves. From a hygiene standpoint, I'm not really sure I'm following like where we are complicit in this act.
So if the clinical notes don't match what was coded, there's going to be a straight line between the clinician and the claim being sent in. So in this situation, say we're looking at a bunch of false claims, the hygienist is signing off on the records, right? But they're billing for something different. They can take a look at all of the clinical notes and find as a whole that the office is engaging in fraudulent claims. And so the hygienist would have to defend themselves against that claim. So even if the records are good, they still have to defend themselves. And it's not I don't think malpractice insurance covers that kind of thing. Now, Beverly is one of my resources because she does expert witness testimony too. So I'm sure she has some stuff to say about this.
Yeah, I definitely think, obviously, if something happens, there's some kind of legitimacy of a claim of some sort that's going to happen. They're going to obviously go to the clinical notes. They are going to pull what was billed that day, how things were charged that day, how things were coded that day. That's going to come back. Where we see mostly in the expert witness world is when you see some of those things, they're going to look for patterns. So when they see one instance of something happening, now they're going to go back and start culling through records and other things to find that same pattern. And if it's repeated, whether it's the hygienist not coding exactly correctly or the hygienist even putting something in correctly that was right and then it being changed later, you want to make sure that there's some kind of system in place for everyone protecting themselves from what they're doing, because you guys are a provider and could be part of a suit.
Okay, so let's walk through this. Let's say that I am Honest Andrew, as I'm known in the dental world.
Of course.
I put in the legitimate code and my chart notes do line up. At some time, what you're saying is that the code that's walked out, that's actually billed to the insurance, that's completed, gets changed from what I put in. Then they're going to come after me and say, and whether I did anything right or wrong, I still have to defend myself.
Yeah, they could, but they're going to be looking for a pattern. So they're going to be looking of, is this something that's occurred that the hygienist has maybe completely overlooked over a long period of time? So it's kind of going back and knowing that you have a system in place for protection of yourself as a hygienist. You're a provider of care, so it's just the same as the doctor. We see it a lot more, I think, in larger type of procedures that doctors are doing, but you don't see, it's not as common, obviously, in the hygiene world. But if you should just make sure that any office that you're working in has some type of system in place for an end of day lockout or some way of making sure that what you have said is accurate.
Yeah.
I think another talking point, she said, period of time. So one of the emails I got was from a hygienist, and she was like, I'm seeing this. They're not submitting what I'm actually doing. They're upcoding. And so I'm worried about my license. And so at that, I guess what I'm talking about with protecting your license is, if you're in a situation like this, how hard is it for you to leave a situation because you know that there's going to be some issues? And then what is your responsibility? Do you need to turn it in or do you not? So wanted to make your listeners just aware that if they notice this in their office, whether it's upcharging, whether it's changing the clinical notes, you can't just sit there and go, well, it's not me. They're not going to come after me. We have a duty, right?
Well, interesting though, because that gets into the whole but it's your employer that's doing it or under your employer's direction. So at what point do you just okay, I have to find a new job then? Because there's not a middle ground here, right?
Right. I don't think the courts see a middle ground, do they?
Right. Well, I think another big thing to consider is there's so many hygienists out there right now guesting in offices. So they don't know, walking in, all of those situations. They're guest hygiene for a day, 2 days, whatever.
That's a very proper term. Guest hygiene.
Guest hygiene. They're a guest in our place of business.
Okay. They don't treat me like a guest.
Well, they should treat you like a guest. Anyway, you're doing them a big favor, so they should be treating you like a guest. They should be rolling out the red carpet as long as you're doing everything too. But if you're guesting in an office and you're guest hygiening, let's say, then you don't know all the systems of that. You don't know what all those systems look like and what that office might be doing. So
that's not a term either.
What? It's not a term?
Guest hygiening?
Yeah, that
listen,
was my word.
We're teaching you all sorts of stuff today.
Guest hygiening. I mean, temping. Temping is so you're a guest.
Locum tenensing.
You're a guest. Locum tenensing. Yeah, that's fine. We can make up words on this show, right?
Yeah, right.
Come on.
Yes, you can. Oh my gosh.
You're really cracking up.
I'm punchy today. That shouldn't have been that funny, but that got me in a tickly spot. It's just so funny.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Oh, I derailed this. I'm sorry. I love that, though.
Oh, good. I'm going to have some cotton candy while you get back on track.
Okay, let's get back on track. Okay, so hold on. They're guest hygiene. That's so bad. I still have a hard time with all of this because, I think it's coming from a individual Andrew. I'm helpless in a lot of these situations. I'm
What do you mean you're helpless? What are you talking about?
I'm temping. I walk out the door. I'm never going to see that office potentially again. And
that doesn't stop a subpoena, though, right?
Well, that's not, I'm saying that.
Not
That's
at
the thing is I could still potentially be involved, whether or not I actually did anything. I'm still involved in this.
Okay.
Dental's a small community. Andrew was the hygienist on record when that happened. This is going to be the, somewhat by the way, Andrew was involved in that. But I'm not going to defend myself to all of our peers and be like, oh,
well, but listen, I mean, honestly, let me put on my criminal's hat here. If I wanted those notes to match, you're leaving. The notes don't close out at the end of the day in most software. Some of them don't close out for a long time, right?
Yeah.
What's to stop me from going in and altering your notes and seeing? I mean, the audit trail, sure, but that's going to have to go to court, right?
Yeah, it would. I mean, there's also there's one thing we see frequent, I would say, is debridements. Debridements are kind of a sticky. You'll have a new patient intake where the new patient intake has been done, charting has been done, and now they code a debridement because the patient's full of mess or whatever.
Yeah.
Now the problem with that is the code for debridement says you can't get charting.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't get charting, but now they've got charting recorded on the same day that they have a debridement coded out to the insurance company, and now it's like, okay, so you really didn't do that, you probably did, but how did you get the charting? So it wasn't really a debridement. So you see that in coding wise, you see that a lot. That's pretty common.
And I feel like we talked about this a lot on this podcast and in all of our groups and stuff specifically about debridement, right? Because I feel like we understand, we know Doc, I can't see the teeth well enough, or I can't get the accurate perio chart. I need you to debride this patient first. Don't worry about an exam, but I still need you to diagnose that that's what I'm going to be doing, right? But and then the doctor goes in and does an exam and is like, no, just go ahead and code that out as a comprehensive. I'm like, but doctor, I didn't do the thing, and then
Right.
but do it anyway. Like that's
Well, but they
that's still
changed
a
the
problem.
code, so that's a problem. They changed the definition of debridement so that you could do an exam on the same day.
Or they walk out comprehensive on their end, and I walk out debridement on my end. Like,
Right.
There's not really a conversation about it,
Yeah.
even though we had a conversation about it.
But if it wasn't recorded, right? Like, maybe as the hygienist, they should be recording all these conversations.
Doctors
I don't
told me,
know.
blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the whole debridement thing is a mess. And I hope that they adjust that code because they did allow.
Wasn't there talk about that they were going to this year or next year or whatever?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
But there should be. I mean, honestly, there should be because all these offices started billing for comprehensive evaluations along with it. And that wasn't the intent. I mean, the reason they changed that language was for the public health systems and the Medicaid systems, because once you see these people, they don't come back, right? So that was why they changed it. Well, then the whole dental industry said, "Oh, hot dog, we're going to do all this other stuff, and we're going to do the comprehensive evaluation," and that was not the intent of the code change. And then, I get very frustrated by this because I feel like the ADA did it as almost a reactionary thing, and it caused a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So, as you know, because you keep talking about it on podcasts.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to keep talking about it.
Yeah, I keep talking about debridement again.
I know, but it doesn't seem to be a real answer, because it seems like we're going to keep having these conversations over and over again. It seems like there's still going to be litigation. There's going to be still expert witness testimony and all these different things. Nothing's going to change. So why are we having this conversation? What a terrible topic to bring to us, Teresa.
What are you talking about? I think this is great. I brought to you a fantastic expert witness testimony. All right, so
I like resolution. There's no resolution. I want it at the end of a story.
No,
and
it doesn't matter. This is a good topic. This is a good topic. Your resolution is unimportant at this point.
I love it.
So I want to ask Beverly, because she's been on my podcast and she has been fantastic with answering these questions. Since we are in a perio-centric podcast, what do you see hygienists getting kind of messed up with in the legal courts? Do you see hygiene having some issues there?
The biggest thing I think we see is continuing to not refer when they're out of options. So probably one of the largest cases that I saw realistically, it was a $4 million case. Doctor, not the hygienist, but the hygienist was called to testimony.
Yeah.
Their license obviously on the line as well. And ultimately, the hygienist had allowed and continue to see the patient on the doctor's order, but continue to see the patient without x-rays, without all of these things. And it was literally like 13 years. And so when it gets worse, I will tell you what happened in the courtroom, which I thought was very interesting. They pulled a lineup of the patients, the hygienist is on the stand, and the plaintiff is sitting in the courtroom, and they put a lineup of 5 people that looked very, very similar to this person. And they asked the hygienist to pick him out of the 5 pictures of which one it is, and she couldn't do it. And she'd seen him every 3 months for what was coded out as perio maintenance for the last 13 years.
How insane is that?
That's what I was going to say, but what does that prove? That's that curiosity.
Well, I think that she couldn't identify him. So
but neither can Brad Pitt, because he can't see faces either. So is he complicit in this too? Because I think he has.
Well, let's say yes.
The longer story short, the patient believed that he was being treated periodontally because he was having, periodontal maintenance charged out. He thought he was seeing a periodontist and was told that he was having periodontal treatments done, and the patient ended up losing about 12 teeth. But,
oh, man.
Yeah, so he won, and he didn't win quite what he was asking for, but.
Could you tell me how the hygienist ended up in all of that? Because it seems like they were also partially liable for that.
Yeah, the hygienist was found liable as well, but their malpractice covered a portion of the settlement as well. But I mean, you have malpractice insurance for that, so I mean that's why you have it. But and obviously, I think that's an extreme case. I don't think most hygienists would probably operate that way, but it happens.
And that's I wish this was like a live thing, and we could do a poll right now. And listener, do this now. Do you guys have a protocol in place? At what point do you refer? Because I'll be honest, in many of the places I was at, while we had a protocol, it was still up to the doctor to refer. It's not up to the hygienist to refer. So I could just talk to them blue in the face and doctor, We're at that point.
But it is
I
up to
don't
the
feel
hygienist to
comfortable.
say no. I'm not going to keep cleaning their teeth when they have pockets like this. It is up to them to say no.
Uh-oh, we've
say
got
it
the
louder,
Andrew
say
face.
it louder.
Uh-oh.
Say it louder.
It is up to the hygienist to say no. Or if not,
No, the knowers.
sit on the witness stand.
Okay, yeah, that's a good or. Just leave it there. Yeah. I love it. Hygienists, like seriously, like I know we're like joking around, but like that is a solid point because I don't think that hygienists feel that they have that power, and I think we're told that. I mean, we're told by our employers that just do doctor diagnoses it, you do it. Even if you don't agree, just do it. Like you're a dumb hygienist, you don't know anything, right? Just do it. So just do it.
And that's really, I think, where the impetus for them proceeding with any kind of fault against her was the fact that you continue to do this regardless. Her defense was, I was just doing what I was told to do.
Yeah.
But that's not an accurate defense. It's not an acceptable defense.
Yeah. I would love to see like fly on the wall on that appointment. Like, what's she really doing Perio treatment though? Because I mean, I
would probably
understand
agree. She was,
that probably minimal
I would agree
at best.
at the end of the day, but
yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Way to go.
I know. See,
You redeemed yourself with that.
okay, good. I like resolution now.
See, there is resolution though on that one.
there's always a story somewhere.
Okay.
There's always a good story somewhere, just finding it.
Well, go ahead.
I want to say, should we talk about sex now?
Oh yeah, let's talk about sex. So
We're gonna snip that out and put it at the beginning. Like, oh, let's talk about sex.
let's talk about sex. Oh,
I'm
that
out of
should
it
be the
because I have
title.
sex with my doctor every day.
He does. She does. She's married to her doctor.
I'm out of it.
She manages the practice and she's married to him.
We
so.
were always married when we worked in the office.
So-
way back when.
So there's that whole proximity, like you're working all day together, and just like things happen, but it's so terrible for the team. Maybe not for you, but it's so terrible
No,
for
I
the
get it.
team when it becomes like well known. So I guess team members coming in after you guys have decided to sleep together and be together, like that's your accepted state. But what about when it's happening in front of you?
Exactly.
And then even worse is the whole one of us is married type thing. So yeah, so
that one's harder for me. Like one for me, like understand. I mean, in a way, I do understand. Take away like your personal value system of like what does marriage mean to you, what is like socially acceptable, all that kind of stuff. You put people in proximity, like you mentioned, for 8 to 12 hours a day, depending on how long the shifts are, over years and years and years. It's not unheard of that there could be some sort of like similarities, and when you going from like a doctor or even like a practice manager's standpoint, like when you're hiring people, you're looking for the good fit, right? Like you want someone that does have a personality that's going to be compatible to yours. You do want some people that are going to be maybe more fun and lively and things like that. So I can understand how it's not like that's why we talk about that. It happens all the time in all the
Sure.
offices. That
Sure.
makes sense to me. Unfortunately, I do have some values and I do have some things that I look through that lens of having, and I still don't understand how you can commit like those types of like behaviors from either standpoint.
yeah.
Like from the doctor's standpoint or from, the dental staff. Never had any doctors hit on me. Maybe that's why I don't understand.
I mean, maybe
Not
you just
good
didn't
looking
know.
enough.
You just
Shameful.
didn't know. I mean, it could have happened, and you just were,
I'm pretty
immune.
sure that none of them ever
It
hit on
doesn't
me.
have to be a grab of the ass. It could be other things.
Oh, it was that. But
Okay,
no,
all
it
right.
wasn't that.
Here's the thing. People get together all the time. That's fine. And there's lots of small businesses where it's man and woman and all that. So that's fine.
Sure.
But the whole the married thing is, I think, what really bothers me. And over the years, talking to managers, there is going to come up conversation of, oh yeah, the assistant, we can never fire the assistant. I think they're sleeping together, or they're never going to fire the hygienist because they're sleeping together. And that just is a terrible position to put the office in. So I think my message is, if you're married or if somebody else is married, just don't do it, buddy. Go out, hit up Tinder, hit up whatever. And
Or Grindr, like whatever you
Grindr,
want.
whatever floats your boat, and hit up something. I don't know. Is there a dental dating app?
Driller,
Maybe that should
driller.
be
We're
it.
gonna name it
Driller.
Driller.
Yes.
That's awesome.
You heard it here first, folks.
A new revenue stream.
Sponsored by, no, we're not going to put any company name on that right now on this podcast.
What
But,
tooth
that would
do
be,
you identify with the most? So yeah, so it's and I
Can we post that in the forum, like, and then dirty answers only?
yeah,
What
yeah.
tooth do you identify with most?
Maybe if you're bisexual, you're a bicuspid. Maybe that's what it
Oh,
is. See, look at
yes.
that.
go both ways.
Go
right?
both ways, exactly.
Furcations. We've said nothing bad.
No, I mean,
Yeah, so it just comes up, and you know, when I back to my coaching days, I've definitely been in offices where a lot of the drama came from. Well, you know, they're sleeping together. And it's just a terrible position to put yourself in.
I do think sometimes, though, team members want to try to speculate, and even sometimes those team members who are saying that might also be team members that are trying to stir some things or create some excess, drama to make everybody else think that, because it's usually one that kind of stirs that pot,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
now I'm trying to read between the lines you're saying. Are you saying they're trying to like drive a wedge between that relationship so they can get into to that
I don't know,
situation? 'Cause
It could be.
I think it's more that they want to, maybe put maybe shed a light that might not always necessarily be true, or maybe kind of make a perception there that might not necessarily be actual.
I would imagine, though, that puts not just from like a weirdness in the office scenario, but like whoever, like the owner of the practice is the dentist, I would assume in most states, puts them in a kind of a precarious situation too, because if it ends up being with, one of the team members in the back, then it's going to be maybe like the treatment plans. Like I have hard to make, like, you're asking your team members to do something hard, but then you're sleeping with them and you're like, I don't want to ask them to do something that they're not going to want to do. Because I know they don't like presenting treatment plans. So maybe I'm not going to present that one patient that's been coming in for forever, because I also like that patient. And they're just like, they don't give the quality care. And then similarly, like to anyone in the front, like, okay, we have these things that we're going to need you guys to do, but I'm not going to ask them to do something hard or something that they don't like to do, and then the office suffers from a business standpoint.
For sure.
It sounds terrible.
That's where the favoritism comes in. So I know when I call them the untouchables, when you go into an office and you find one person that's like the most terrible person in the office, but they're untouchable. For some reason, the doctor will not fire them. It's usually because they either have something on the doctor or they're sleeping with the doctor. I mean, I'll be honest, that's what it usually boils down to. And so what you're talking about is that he's not going to ask, or she's not going to ask them to do a hard job, because they're going to hear about it later, right? So I mean, that's married or unmarried. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Well, this is why I'm a big fan of spouse-led practices as well. I think having a spouse-led practice.
Spouse-led
you know
practices.
What? So many people hate it, but I think it really depends on the dynamic of the spouses. I can see it being an issue in a lot of situations. And I can definitely see it being. I think I just don't find that in my group. I mean, I think I find most of the spouses that I interact with really have. I mean, a lot of times they're really at work. Yes, they care about their husband or wife's physical abilities and, how their days are running and all of those things, but they really genuinely care about their teams. I mean, they really, really just really love their team members. So I think it depends. I'm definitely going to say I can see that there's been, spouse-led practices that have definitely had issues. But I think for the most part, most of them really want the right thing at the end of the day and really do genuinely care about the teams.
It does make me sad when I read online that I will never work work for a doctor if the spouse is employed.
Yeah.
And that's really sad, because I also know a lot of spouse-led practices that are fantastically run. So I think the ones that just kind of helicopter in, or the ones who just walk in and yell at everybody for not making enough money, like, they're terrible people. So I don't think it's sad that that's the impression that they get for the whole industry.
I think it has to do a lot too with the support that the spouse gets separate and apart from just the practice. Because if they're in there on an island, that's any manager anywhere. If they don't have some kind of support system, they're going to be not as happy in their workplace. So I think finding a support system or a support group for spouses specifically that doesn't always include the couple or the dentist, finding their own identity in that environment, that they are a business leader in that environment, is really important to making it a successful situation.
I want to ask both of you this. I cut this one out. It might be a little bit too provocative or whatever. But like, because it's not because it's you guys. I tell you, I just have to be careful. We have an image to maintain.
Oh boy,
we've been so nice.
I know. We really have
this
kept
question
it
might
clean.
not be. Here's the thing. In the experience that you all have, because I don't live in the world that you guys live in, are you hearing back that, this is a gender question, if it's the male practice manager and female dentist owner has a worse reputation, because I've seen lots of things where it's the male MBA did this thing, came in, wants to run this thing,
And they're married?
these things, and they're married. Yeah. So it's a spouse.
Which one's the practicing dentist?
But
male or female?
The female.
Female. Okay.
So the guy comes in, he's just like a total jerk, a tyrant, and all these things. He doesn't understand dentistry and all, blah, 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 blah. But then
I actually
flip
think it's
it.
opposite.
So you think it's opposite?
I think it's
So
opposite.
she
Well,
thinks
the
it's,
other
but
way.
I think it's your way.
I think it's my way too. But like,
So I think it's opposite because
I think it's
do
perception it's your way, but I think it's the reality our way.
Oh, is that right?
Is that how it
I
works?
like it.
I do.
I think so.
I think so.
All right, listeners, welcome back. We had another little snafu here at the old Chicago Midwinter. Teresa's fault, obviously. We all accept that as truth,
Okay.
and we're just going to move on. And so, unfortunately, though, this is time to start wrapping up. Actually, we were talking now that I remember it is like the male versus female, like whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Teresa and I won that argument already. So let's just wrap it up. But here's the thing. What I would like to do is, because this is fun, this is like super enjoyable. Teresa, if you don't mind just letting our listeners know if they want ridiculous content like this, where can they find you?
How dare you? But yes, come find me. And nobody told me that. That is my main podcast. And then I have another one with our friend Kevin Henry. It's called Chew on This, where we do talk about the salacious side of dentistry. I think that's going to be our tagline, because that's what we talk about. Salacious stuff,
Yeah.
flossing with hair, doing turkey teeth, like all sorts of stuff. So yeah, come find us.
Beverly?
And I'll be on your
Yes,
podcast.
yes, you
soon.
will.
So I will. That's where they can find me. I just come
What
along
if they
for the
need like
ride.
an
I'm just
expert
here for the
witness
fun.
or something?
I know, exactly. They can reach out to me anytime. They can find me usually somewhere on social media. Beverly Wilburn, they'll find
And
me.
you'll be on my podcast a little bit later on, too.
I will.
Just the two
Okay,
of us,
that's fine.
Teresa.
What?
It's a big
Thank
pod,
goodness.
so-
See, I'm feeling like a third wheel here.
Yeah, you are.
Okay,
All right. Well,
great.
thanks, listeners. Appreciate it. Bye.
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 Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.